Hi, my name is Leigh Prince, and I'm a graduate of the Code Louisville front-end web development track. For my project, I built a webcomic site to showcase some of the comic art that I like to draw in my spare time. Let me show you what I've done.
So this is my site for oculoids, which are these little eyeball people, as well as some other comic content. My goal for this project was to make a site that was easy to update quickly with new content, as well as flexible enough to eventually be transitioned into a version that uses server-side code to manage the content. Each page includes this header with links to the non-comic pages on the site, as well as this footer, which has the same. These buttons are for the first, previous, next, and last comics, with this middle one also leading to the archive page. Clicking on the image itself will advance to the next page, which is convention for webcomic sites, and so will be what most viewers expect. In mobile view, this will instead open the image in a lightbox so that the user can zoom and scroll to view any comics for easier reading. I also have keyboard navigation built into the site using JavaScript, which is another expectation for webcomic viewers. Pressing the left arrow key will take you to the previous page, and pressing the right arrow key will take you to the next page. If you try to go past either the first or last page, an alert will pop up that will remind you that you've gone as far as there is to go. Further down, I have a section for the comic's title, the date it was posted, and a small comment if one is warranted. This section is actually populated by an AJAX call to a JSON file, which I'll talk more about in just a minute. This right-hand area is intended for ads or announcements, but for now links to a few other comics. On to our HTML, which I wrote in GitHub's Atom text editor. Here at the top, I've linked a font and my CSS. My jQuery and JavaScript files are linked at the bottom of the page to keep with load order standards. This is the header that is repeated across all pages, and in fact, every actual comic page's HTML is almost identical. Since this project was built using only front-end languages, I wanted it to be as easy to manage as possible. Adding a comic requires only that I copy all of this existing code and make 4 small changes that I'll point out as we go. If you look at the code for the navigation buttons, you'll see that they are empty links. These buttons have their images declared in CSS so that the site only calls the server once per image. You'll also see that the previous and next buttons have empty href attributes. These attributes are loaded using jQuery so that I never have to update these buttons when adding more content to the site. Here is the actual comic, this image tag being one of the only places where I do manually change the code on update. Though I could have also populated this with jQuery, I chose not to because of how the load order is set up. I want the comic to load as quickly as possible, as it is the main focus of the page, not pop in a few milliseconds after the scripts load. This empty div element is the target for the content loaded via AJAX call, and this footer is also repeated across every page. Finally, here is the other section that I update manually. Each comic has 3 variables declared on it that help determine the page's behavior. 2 booleans that declare whether this is the first or last comic page, and a numerical ID variable. These variables are used several times in my JavaScript, which I will show you now. So here we have the setup for the AJAX call, which pulls in the content for the callit div and some quick code that formats the data with the proper HTML tags. I initially had the HTML written to the JSON file itself, but pretty quickly realized that this approach was much more maintainable. These next 2 functions take the variable I showed you in the HTML and, when called, use them to populate the navigation buttons I showed you earlier. This block of code captures the button presses of the left and right arrow keys and executes the navigation functionality I demonstrated. This lightbox triggers on mobile view, but it disables itself on windows above a certain size. And finally, this last cluster of code executes the above functions. Here very quickly is the JSON file I have set up to contain the comments. This is another thing I did to future-proof the site so that I never have to hunt through old pages to get this content. Finally, in my CSS, I have the site built mobile first with media queries on the bottom to adjust for larger screen sizes. I have this organized to first go through any general element selectors, then through the wrapper divs I used, and finally go through the site top to bottom, except where I need to adjust for the cascade. Here in this section are where the images for the circular navigation buttons are called and set. Additionally, the circular archive button is not present on mobile view, and so it is hidden here. This is the section that determines the styling behavior for the lightbox. And finally, I have two media queries for medium and large size screens. These media queries are built with device width and not window width, so to show them to you, I need to go back to the browser and go to the simulated view tool so I can demonstrate. This is the smallest view of the site. The top nav bar is gone, and I've replaced the title image with text. The lightbox is now functional, which on a desktop with a mouse isn't very helpful, but it allows for better pinch and zoom on an actual mobile device. Also, this comment div is still present, but I've removed the other secondary content div to allow for cleaner design. The other site pages are still accessible via this footer. At a slightly larger size, you'll see that all of the hidden elements are back, but the sizing and spacing is still a little different to allow for better display on a medium screen size. And finally, here we are back at the full desktop view.
So that's my project. My next step for the site is to learn PHP or another backend language to make the site truly dynamic. Professionally, I'd be interested in a web development position or something similar. Once again, my name is Leigh Prince, and I'm a graduate of the Code Louisville Front End Web Development track. Thanks for watching.